Today is exciting us is obviously The Walking Dead. We brought it to PC, PSVR 2. We have this feature that we didn't know was going to go in until the very last minute. I've been trying to talk about. It's basically you can transfer your saves from Quest to PSVR 2, right? You can transfer them from PSVR 1 to PSVR 2 from Chapter 1. So it saves from Chapter 1. You can bring them, so you can start Chapter 2 with a little bit of your history in the franchise.
That's huge.
We built it on purpose because we thought it, like the reason everybody mocks the title, so I'll give you a little bit of like some back. I'm fully responsible for it, so nobody else's fault. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to be very clear that this is a continuation of the story, right? And we thought that the title was the way to do it. Because that's the thing that everybody's going to be talking about, and my SEO people are very upset at me. But the consequence of that is that you have the truth, right? This is Chapter 2 of the story of the tourist, and we wanted to make it easy for you to kind of continue, right? And simultaneously, we wanted to build what I think is the best deal in VR, right? Like right now, if you go on PSVR 2 and you buy Chapter 1 plus 2 for $60, it's like 40 plus hours of content.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we put the screws to the engine as much as we could to make it deliver as much as it could. We're pretty happy with the outcome. This is a very big game for VR. It's very complicated, so kind of ironing out the kinks is always like a journey. Sure. But we wanted to really flex the capabilities of the PC and PSVR 2 because a lot has happened to the PC and PSVR space with the launch of PSVR 2 and with the continuing improvements to the video cards. There's just a lot of stuff you can do now in VR. You can do dynamic shadows, you can do and really get the textures to shine. We happen to be lucky. Chapter 2 is stylized for a purpose because it's a comic book license. We want it to feel like the comic book. We really get to flex some of those extra features that still bring it to life. We got foliage, we got dynamic severing of people and walkers, which let me tell you is makes for very interesting PEGI and ESRB conversations.
Yeah.
So like we have a way for you to turn that off in some regions, but like we put a lot of effort into kind of respecting the nature of like the sandbox, right? So you're going out, and some people love the story, some people just love to kind of play around with it, like it's fun little journey through.
I love it. I've got like a million questions. First one, let me say right away. PC version, PlayStation VR 2 version, knocked it out of the park. I mean, they're probably the most perfect versions of this game that you can find. Now, you guys had a little stumbling with the Quest 2 version of the game, but how much work have you guys put into it since the launch of it?
A lot, right? And like we wanted to really put respond as much as possible to the players' feedback. And so we feel we did that. We have a big update for Quest that came out today as well. A lot of visual improvements. A lot of, it's Quest, like it's a mobile chipset, right? It's a Qualcomm chipset. It's a strong chipset, but it came out, it's like also 2 years old, right?
Yeah.
So we did what we could with the resources at our disposal, and we think that, with the improvements that we're putting out today, we've been patching it since launch to try and just like, we wanted to get it in the hands of the players in time for the holidays. We thought it was important, to not hold it back, and the players thought it was important for us to address some issues, so we did. And then we're continuing to put work to try and like get that quality as high as we can across all platforms, right? Like our intent is for all players. That's why we're still committed to bringing it to PSVR 1, right? The reason for that is because we understand players come in all platforms and sizes, and we want them to all be happy with the game experience. That's it's part of our partnership with Skybound. Like they really love the idea of everyone that's a Walking Dead fan being able to play, and we agree with them on that.
Yeah, I think that one of the greatest things was people know the pedigree of Skydance from the original game, so I think a lot of people had faith that if there were going to be issues, that it would be taken care of. Hindsight being 2020, do you think you should have delayed it until this time and released all ones at the same time, or is that too difficult in today trying to release?
I don't know. Like
three
that's a really
separate
good. That's a really good question. It's always like hindsight is 2020, right? So you can always be like, I want to have a launch that is perfect and that makes everybody happy. And I always want to do that with every one of my game launches, but I've learned the hard way that sometimes, like, no matter how much you want something, like, your path is fraught with peril.
Right.
And so, like, we will continue to try and exceed players' expectations. That's just kind of our objective.
Yeah.
Right?
And we should say right now that the game that you will play now on the Quest 2 is markedly different than the game when it was originally launched. So if you haven't done it yet, go now and go play the Quest 2 version because it's really amazing. Yeah. Let's talk about PlayStation VR 2. I mean, that has been something that we as a channel have been like infatuated with since its launch. The game now with the haptics in the face and with the haptics in the controllers. Tell us a little bit about your journey with PlayStation VR2 and the game.
Well, we've been working with PlayStation for a while. We're really happy with the partnership. We got the kits, and we were able to look at a lot of the tech. And personally, like I'll give you sort of my user perspective. I'm a huge PlayStation player. I really like what the choice of the OLED screen. I just think it's the not completely unsung hero, because like people are starting to pick up on it, but to me it's like the standout hero of it, because it's one of those things that are like, they just decided to make the screen better, which is simple, right? But it's also not, right?
Right.
And so like, especially for a game, it kind of makes it shine, because we have night mode and we have really dark areas, and with the dynamic shadows, it just makes everything like really visible. The wider field of view, awesome, because you're able to kind of spot all the threats that we throw at you. And then like the haptics are great too, right? Especially as you're going from PSVR 1 player to PSVR 2 player. I mean, it's night and day, right?
Yeah,
like they kind of, and Sony knows how to do ergonomics, right? Like they, as we have seen, I think, from the past 20, 30 years, I don't know. And so they really deliver with all their control scheme, right? Like the responsiveness, the tracking, it's all really strong. The single cable is like very high performance.
Absolutely.
I've really enjoyed the experience on it, and I think that it's it's hard. I don't even know off the top of my head if there's another headset out there that even in the PC space that has that kind of screen. I'm not even sure Pimax has that kind of screen.
Yeah, I mean,
you may know better than
I've
I
tried
do.
both. I mean, I really have to say, I think you're 100% right. The OLED screens, because the Pimax does not have that, and the Crystal or the AKX, and to me, the PlayStation with the OLED screens is just so much richer. The colors pop so much. It's not even that the blacks are blacker, it's the colors are more vibrant and richer. So, especially in a game like Walking Dead, where color scheme is so important to the game, I think it's perfect.
And my engineering team would probably crucify me if I didn't bring up repeated times that they basically bent over backwards to create 98 FPS native.
Wow.
So that's the thing so we went to this early press event at PlayStation, and we were running it at 60 with 120 reprojection.
Right.
And you could see on some of our menus that there was some splitting because of it, and folks from the media kind of brought it to our attention. We sort of knew, but we didn't know exactly how people would pick up on it, because a lot of people are just unaffected by that, but a lot of people are. And so we're like, well, what can we do to really make it work at 90? And I think that it speaks for itself, right? You could see it, you could have these really long distances, very crisp angles and stuff. It just kind of feels like the way it's meant to be played.
Fantastic. I mean, we actually love, the beauty of these games is such a huge part, but the story to me is another big part. And you touched on the cloud saving system now. So let me ask a question now. If you were continuing a save, do your choices in the first game continue to the second game, or will you notice a difference if you play differently?
I think it's mostly about what you've accumulated than the choices that shape the
So you'll
narrative.
bring your
some of your
things
gear,
with you.
Some of your gear, and so I think that again, there's a lot of detail to how to do that correctly, which I think we've posted. We try to make it as simple as possible. It's not super simple just yet, but it does allow you to kind of retain some of your journey from Chapter 1, which I think is the important thing that we wanted to nail. And then, of course, New Orleans has changed drastically. You got Garrick, you got new factions, and so I think that the thing that we did is we called it Chapter 2 for a reason, right? It's a continuation, but we definitely got to flex some of the learnings from the first one. You got these massive maps. You have these kind of boss type enemy, right? You have a lot of things that we're doing that you're starting to see some of our invention kind of expand upon what we did with Chapter 1, and you can bet that those lessons will be brought forward in the future games.
Now, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't actually mention multiplayer. Everybody always asks about multiplayer. Our community is always saying we love Walking Dead, but we would love to be able to play with people.
Yeah, we would love to. So that there's just this chasm of work between a single player game and a multiplayer game, especially a good multiplayer game, right? So I think that we are not. We also read the comments of the community, and we wanted to really nail the story of the tourist before we decided whether or not you could go and co-op with your friends or whatever else, right? There's a lot of ways in which you can build a multiplayer experience in the Walking Dead that would feel intuitively satisfying, but we really kind of wanted to nail the experience before dabbling in that. It's not something that we're close to. We actually we built Archangel Hellfire, right? So we know a little bit about. Thank you. We know a little bit about multiplayer. We think that the two core challenges probably for Walking Dead multiplayer would be solving like multiplayer melee and having that feel really good. There's a lot of kind of effort that can be done there, and if you look at our games, we really like our kind of what we call brutally tactile combat. And the purpose of brutally tactile combat is to have you really feel in the moment, like realistic experiences and interactions. And so if we figure out a way to do that with multiple players simultaneously, then you will probably see us bring something to market that will demonstrate that.
Nice. Now, we love the horde mode in the first game. You know, that was kind of an added bonus. Later after the game came out, would we maybe see something like that for Chapter 2?
You have all the good questions.
I try my best.
You know, like horde mode, like we don't have any plans right now to talk about horde mode, but obviously, like, seeing how people interact with the game and how excited they are and how many folks jump on board for Chapter 2 will give us a little bit of an indicator. We also, we'll get to see some of that data from people trying Chapter 1 for the first time on PSVR 2, right? Because we brought that to PSVR 2. You'll notice there's a slight difference between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Some of the visual things that we were able to flex for Chapter 2 are just not part of the Chapter 1 experience. Chapter 1 will look amazing and will play amazing on PSVR 2, but Chapter 2 will really shine because we were able to do some things in Chapter 2 that are just like from a gameplay perspective there, right? Like the chainsaw doing dynamic severing, like a lot of kind of the foliage that we developed specifically for Chapter 2 locations. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can only get with Chapter 2, but Chapter 1, I think, for anyone that is a fan, is worth getting on PSVR 2, and so we tried to have a good upgrade path that felt fair.
Yeah, and to me, I think it's one of the most amazing ways to play with the chainsaw, with the haptic feedbacks, and the headset for the PlayStation VR 2. It really is amazing. It puts you in the feel of it. You guys did a great job of doing this, and kudos. Thank you so much for talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.